there was a great guardianship seminar put on by MVLS where they would train you on how the guardianship process works, and then you would agree to take one case after that from MVLS. And I did that, and the first case that I was assigned was a homeless person who had literally no family or people that he had in his life at all, completely isolated and on his own, had been homeless for a number of years and had had a stroke, and he was in the hospital and was in a coma, and there was not much chance of him recovering. And so the hospital was interested in having someone appointed to make decisions for him as far as next steps on his medical care. And so I took that case, and it was eye-opening to see somebody in that situation and with no one to help them. And so right after working through that particular case and that process, and helping with that particular client's medical situation, I knew, all right, that there are a lot of really difficult situations out there for clients where they have problems that they can't solve, and I can figure out how to help them in a number of cases.
But my very first family law case was a female. She's fairly young. She had a lot of, interesting past, where she wasn't doing the most, best behaviors. So her chances of her children had got removed. Then she went to supervised care with her children, and then the ex-husband left, and she didn't see her kids for 4 years. And then COVID happened. So I'm in the middle of fighting this case, and COVID happens, and I'm thinking to myself, she's going to go another 2-3 years without seeing her kids. And we finally get her FaceTime visitation, and eventually we get physical visitation. And I will never forget the day of sitting in the park and just watching from across the street what it was like to see her children again, and for her children to see her. And I know that in some way I impacted that.
One of my first cases with MVLS was a family of 3 children that came into my office teary-eyed. It was early in the morning, the appointment, and you could tell they had been crying all night. Their eyes were red. And the reason why they were upset was because they were deported because they showed up to court 5 minutes late. And they came into my office thanks to an MVLS placement. And after that consultation, we developed a plan of attack. We filed motions to reopen the case. We filed for relief. And right now they have green cards, and they are on their way to become U.S. citizens. They are educated. They have gone to college. They are hardworking. They pay taxes. So to take a case that was pretty much abandoned, a case where people were facing, or these children were facing, imminent deportation, and to turn that case around in about 4 to 5 years, getting them free from removal, getting them back on track with their legal status in this country, getting them the green cards, is why I volunteer with MVLS, to have that opportunity each and every day. The task is enormous. I recall the words of Mother Teresa, who once said that if you can't help 100 people, then just help 1. So every attorney in Maryland has an opportunity to do pro bono, to perform this vital service to the community, so that our society is a better place for everyone.
I have had 2 cases that were similar to each other in their fundamentals, in that both of them involved same-sex parents. In this case, a birth mom and a second mom that they were together but not married. And then once they split up, the birth mom decided that the other mom shouldn't have access to the child anymore. And so it took court intervention to change that. And in both cases, it took quite a number of months to get the second mothers reunited with the child. But in both cases, in one case through trial, and in one case through settlement, we were able to get access restored between the parents and the child.
I would say so far, I had a case working with a young woman who came from a different country. She has a language barrier, so we've been working with an interpreter, and just being able to help her through some really difficult times. There's some domestic violence, and to help see her through this process and see that she had hope.
My most memorable case with MVLS was in representing a person who was a veteran who at first needed assistance in getting disability and other veteran benefits. And through a different organization, I helped him acquire those benefits. But then he also had housing trouble as a result of his lack of income. And so through MVLS, I was engaged to help him with a threatened foreclosure of his house. Over time, with a lot of consultation and discussion, we determined that the best outcome was for him to allow the home to go to foreclosure and for him to find alternative housing. And he needed that advice to know how to manage his situation. It was unlikely that, given the circumstances, he was going to be able to remain in the home that was in foreclosure. But he was able to understand the process through my guidance and come up with a solution for finding alternative housing in a different area that was affordable to him and allowed him the stability that he needed with the newly earned benefits, or the newly obtained benefits that he got for his disability and his veteran service.
There was this grandmother, and she was homebound. She couldn't come out of her home. So I went to meet with her. What she wanted, the only thing she wanted, was to be able to leave something to her two grandsons whose parents died when they were young. So she raised her grandsons, and they were now, at that point, they were 22 and 24. And in her mind, in knowing her grandson, she was like, they wouldn't know what to do when I'm gone. So I want to make sure that I can leave what I have. I don't have much. I have this home, and that's what I want to leave to them. And it was a rural home in Baltimore City, off of Monroe Street, which is really the neighborhood that I grew up in, because I'm Baltimore City, born and bred. And so listening to her story and a lot of it, because, transferring a deed or doing a will is not as difficult when you don't have that many assets. But listening to the story behind having to do the will is what endears me to make sure that I do it right, to make sure that the deed that is filed is done appropriately and has all of the plat information appropriately and accurately for her to be able to leave those to her sons. And so, just listening to the backstory, and she shed some tears, and I was there with her probably for about 3.5 hours at the first consultation. And usually it doesn't take that long, but because she had a story to tell, and I allowed her the space, the freedom, and the comfort within which to tell that story. And so when I came back and it was time to sign, she wanted her grandsons to meet me. They were there at that time. The first time they weren't there, but they were there when I came back for her to sign with some additional witnesses. And so I introduced myself, they introduced themselves. Very good young men. And she brought out this cake. And she said, I'm a baker. I don't have much, but I could bake you a cake. And she brought this cake, and we sat and we ate and we talked and we shared our own stories. So that was probably the most memorable case that I've had through MVLS.